What's going on, guys? It's Bengt. Welcome back to another video. In this one, we're going to be talking about why you feel lost. And in my personal life, I've experienced this and have been experiencing this. People that I talk to all the time, friends, family, random strangers, just people everywhere. It seems like, in my unprofessional personal opinion, I think that humanity and society is degrading, and I think that people are feeling more and more lost because they're losing one particular ability. And that ability is to be able to think for yourself. And in my last video, I talked a lot about how operating from a place of authenticity a lot of times is the solution to figuring out and kind of guiding yourself through the next steps and figuring out what it is you want to do with your life. And I think a lot of that comes down to self-awareness and people's ability to be able to think for themselves. Social media has rotted our brains, and when you think about the term influencer, which is a very appropriate name for, I guess, the people or the types of things that are happening on the internet, because it doesn't always have to be a person. Influencers can come in the form of brands or groups or identities. And I think that one thing that a lot of people have lost is intuition. There have been ups and downs in my own life where I feel like I've been much more connected to my gut instinct, to the things that I feel like, the voice in the back of my head kind of guiding me through what I should do next. Whether you want to attribute that to kind of an innate ability, whether you want to attribute that to some sort of divine or spiritual connection, a heightened level of self-awareness. I think a lot of it comes down to, it could be all of those things or any combination of those things, but one's ability to think for themselves and formulate their own thoughts is an extremely important skill. And I think it's something that we're losing touch with fast, and it gets worse, every year that goes by as content on the internet becomes easier to consume. It's further and further designed to keep and hold your attention. And a lot of people are aware of like dopamine, right? And how short form content and just social media in general has kind of trained and rewired your brain to just consume and consume and consume. And I think that it might be kind of an underrated, unappreciated, maybe a lot of people are unaware too, that you become what you consume. And when we talk about things like food, I think that's very easy to understand. If you go out and you eat McDonald's every day, you will become overweight. You will develop addictions to the artificial man-made chemicals that are just absolutely injected and pumped into those products. But a lot of people, I think, neglect or maybe are less aware of the fact that your mental state, your mental capacity, your brain, just like your stomach, becomes what you consume, right? So before we go there, let's just talk more about the idea of an influencer. They've given appropriately that title to people that create content and stuff online because they influence your brain, they influence your thoughts, they influence your decision making, they influence your views of the world. And there's a lot of advantages to that for the people that are able to produce that content, because if they can influence your decision making, they can train you to think a certain way, they can sell you a product or monetize that in some other way, shape, or form. And I think that people are becoming increasingly more lost because they're unable to think for themselves. And I want you to take a second and just really reflect and think about how many thoughts you have on a day-to-day basis that are actually genuinely your own, spawns of your own intellect and your own spirit, versus thoughts that have been programmed into you by other people, other sources of media. And I think you might be rather surprised at how many of the thoughts that you have aren't actually your own. And this goes beyond just social media, but that's kind of the main talking point of this video. But by being around other people, it's pretty commonly known, and this saying appropriately has, kind of become mainstream. Like, you become the people that you spend the most time around. And that's very true. Thoughts, energy, feelings, emotions, worldviews, all of these things rub off on people. And the people that you spend time around will more than likely over time, could be slow, it could be fast, but their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, their worldviews will certainly rub off on you when you're spending a lot of time in close proximity to those people. And you kind of eventually just average out to being, the exact carbon copy person of the people you spend time around and the people that you consume on the internet. And I think that the ability for critical thinking, the ability to formulate our own opinions and thoughts, is becoming increasingly more rare. Like, I think that if I asked you, what do you think about XYZ? Probably you would just regurgitate the information of the most recent videos or influencers or TikToks that you watched on that topic, right? So I think that there's a lot of people that feel lost because as soon as they don't have a pre-programmed answer to a question or a thought or an idea that's been taught to them or told to them by somebody else, they get confused, they get lost. Like, we've lost the ability to come to our own conclusions and to think critically for ourselves. And, when it comes to business and stuff like that, you reach a certain point with business where you as the owner can't possibly fulfill every single role within a company, right? So the next step is to hire people or to outsource certain pieces of that work. And I think a lot of people have gotten so lazy that they have outsourced their thinking to their favorite or most popular influencer or content creator or news outlet or media source. And I think that's extremely dangerous because, again, I think that the big reason why people feel lost is because as soon as there's any situation or as soon as there's any thought or something that they're wrestling or grappling with in their own mind that they don't have a video that they've watched for, or there's not this like answer that jumps right into their brain because they've consumed it somewhere in media or TikTok or whatever, it's like you feel lost because you can't think for yourself. You can't come to your own conclusions. You can't think critically. And I hate to propose a problem without also proposing a solution. And to be honest with you, I don't know what the perfect solution for this is, because I think that it's important to consume quality media. I think it's important to learn and to educate yourself. And there's certainly a lot of valuable information out there on the internet. So it's hard to just come along and say, your brain is rotting because of all of the nonsense that you're consuming on your phone. But also there's valuable information to be consumed out there as well. And I don't know if moderation is the key either, because again, do you moderate the good and the bad or all together, or like your screen time? Like there's no one metric or one thing that you can track to just like fix this problem. But I think that if more time was spent with yourself, more time was spent reflecting on what you actually think and believe, not just what you've been told to think or believe, then maybe you can come to some conclusions on your own. And I also think that it's really important to ask questions. And I think that me personally, when I consume information or when I see things on the internet, for the most part, I think it's pretty easy to tell the people that are sharing things that are worth consuming, and there's not necessarily an agenda or a motive behind it. But at the end of the day, like any media that's being consumed, if it's being consumed in large quantities, there's an ability to monetize that somewhere. So everybody has some sort of financial incentive or otherwise to be creating content or posting things and stuff like that. So one thing that you can kind of do is follow the paper trail, so to speak, and do your research on the people that you listen to and figure out why they might be saying certain things to you. If they have some sort of other motive or reason why they might be sharing certain things with you. And at the end of the day, like spending time with our own thoughts is something that is uncomfortable. And I think that that's why people avoid it so much. The world that we live in is a comfortable one for most people. For developed countries, for a lot of places in the Western world, it's like we don't have a lot of real pressing issues in our day-to-day lives. Our shelter is, for the most part, taken care of. Our food is available to us at the grocery store, or we can pay someone to go pick it up and deliver it to our front door. And I think that we've solved a lot of really big problems that are great. But it's also left this gaping void to where people have too much time on their hands to just consume nonsense or create problems that don't exist. And everyone's seeking to just like solve these problems, and they're very, I don't want to say irrelevant, but they're just, in the grand scheme of things, they don't actually get to the root of anything super, super important. They're kind of trivial. So do an audit on your thoughts. Do an audit on the time that you spend consuming media. And if you can come to the conclusion that a lot of the thoughts that you have aren't your own, maybe it's time to take a step back and maybe try to connect with yourself a little bit more and really try to identify and reevaluate sort of your own persona, your own identity, your own mental stance on a lot of the important things that are going on in your life, in the world, and formulate your own opinion. I think that's something that would be very beneficial. And it's something that I'm doing in my own life right now, where it's like, I only make these videos when I feel like there's something genuinely worth talking about. And a lot of times it's from me figuring out that this is something that's happening in my life, and also just having conversations with other people. And I realize, okay, like I'm not the only one feeling this. I'm not the only one experiencing this. So there has to be something here, right? And I think it's pretty easy to see that, the consumption of media across the board is something it's unregulated. There's no real benchmark or data how it affects people long term. It's a very new thing. So like other things that have come along and disrupted the fabric of our day-to-day lives, we don't see the outcomes. We don't see the potential issues that are created by those things until far into the future. And so I think that things like short form content and media and influencers, they've been around long enough now where we're starting to see how it affects people, how it affects their brains, how it affects their ability to think for themselves. And so I know I've said it already, but again, just to kind of drive the point home, if you do feel lost, if you feel like you're just stuck in this empty void, try your best to rekindle the relationship that you have with your gut, with your intuition, with your instinct, and try to identify what thoughts you're having that are yours versus what the thoughts you're having that have been pushed into your brain by other things, other people, other sources. And I think if you can do that, you might be pleasantly surprised upon reflection that you are still capable of having your own thoughts. You are still capable of having your own opinions on things. And you are capable of thinking critically and being self-aware. And I think that that opens up a lot of doors where you can start to analyze the things in your life, analyze the things that you've been doing that you weren't doing because you thought it was a good idea, but things that you thought that you were doing because other people told you it was a good idea, or society, or influencers, or the massive herd of people kind of just migrated in the direction that this was the right thing to do, or the right way to think, or the right political view or stance. If you can do that and come to your own conclusions, I think that just by stepping into that authentic version of yourself that's formulating your own opinions and your own beliefs, that you'll feel a lot less lost. And I think in that process, you also sort of start to put together a roadmap of what your life can look like and what you can formulate for yourself around kind of having these original thoughts and ideas. So if you've made it this far in the video, I appreciate you taking some time. And I hope that this was helpful for you. And if it was, I'd appreciate it if you like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you guys think about this. Because again, a lot of these videos, I get the idea, or I just kind of feel inspired to talk about it based on things that are happening in my life and the conversations that I'm having with others. And I like to extend that conversation to you guys here on the internet. So again, thanks for taking the time hanging out with me and talking about this. As always, stay strong, stay blessed, stay dangerous, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.